The founder of Amazon and owner of the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos, kicks off a 3-day wedding in Venice to former TV journalist Lauren Sanchez on Friday. So I guess a wedding is the closest this monstrosity, Jeff Bezos, ever comes to a union. The wedding is expected to run $50 million, which is half the cost of what Lauren Sanchez paid the plastic surgeon to make her breasts look like Jeff Bezos' shiny skull. Bezos' first marriage ended in divorce. His ex-wife reportedly walked away with more than $100 billion. There's your wage theft. That's the wage theft I can approve of. Bezos said he thinks the second time around will last longer because if Sanchez misbehaves, he can just launch her into space. Bezos also added, a great relationship is built on antitrust. Instead of consummating the marriage, Bezos will just leave his package outside her door and she can grab it whenever she gets around to it. The wedding vows will be exchanged on an island in Venice. The island is called San Giorgio Maggiore. It will be inside a church built during the 1500s, which houses Tintoretto's famous The Last Supper. The wedding reception, scheduled for Saturday, was originally planned to take place in the center of Venice, but protesters created security concerns, forcing the couple to hold reception inside the Arsenal, a building that they deemed much safer. On Monday, the couple returns right back to work as wax dummies inside Madame Tussauds. Speaking of wax dummies, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner will be at the wedding along with their children. Kim Kardashian, Oprah Winfrey, Orlando Bloom, Bill Gates, Mick Jagger, and Elton John are also reported to be among the 200 guests who are being asked to pick their favorite charity and use the money they normally donate to buy the married couple a gift instead. Greenpeace unveiled a massive banner in Venice that read, if you can rent Venice for your massive wedding, you can afford to pay more taxes. Well, last week, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump unveiled T1, the Trump mobile phone, which retails for $500, made entirely, they promised, in the good old US of A. You might remember I told you that most analysts agreed that it would take 5 years for a company to build the infrastructure and train workers in order to actually make a cell phone in the United States of America. It's just something we don't do. But this is the Trump family, and if they put their minds to it, they can achieve absolutely nothing and then lie about it. Turns out they lied about the phones being made in the US of A. Those nuclear facilities in Iran weren't busted, but the Trump mobile phone company has been busted. The brothers this week had to walk back their claims that their T1 mobile phone was going to be made in the US of A. It's not. The Verge broke the story yesterday. They say that now, if you go to the Trump mobile site, they're no longer claiming the phone is made in the United States. No more Made in the USA banner on the homepage. Its new claim is the phone is proudly American. The phone is proud to be an American. I don't care how proud it is to be an American. If that phone didn't come from here, it's an illegal immigrant and needs to be sent back to wherever. The website is now claiming the phone isn't made in America, but was designed with, quote, American values. And those American values, Chinese slave labor. According to The Verge, the Trump phone is now claiming to have, quote, American hands behind every device, and those American hands, no doubt, are grabbing the phone's pussy without permission. Well, The Verge, better be careful. you tell the truth about the Trump phone, he's going to sue you for defamation. Donald Trump's personal lawyer sent a cease and desist letter to the New York Times this week, threatening to sue the paper of record for libel and defamation after the New York Times reported on a leaked classified Defense Intelligence Agency memo indicating that despite Trump's claims that Saturday's airstrikes were up there with Nagasaki and Hiroshima, turns out the bunker busters, if we're lucky, only set back Iran's nuclear program by a matter of weeks, possibly months. Probably Israel did all the work last week, and Saturday's attacks by Trump were unnecessary. The New York Times also reported that the intelligence memo said Iran had moved most of its enriched uranium from those nuclear facilities before the American airstrikes, and that the bunker busters didn't even succeed in obliterating the underground buildings as Donald Trump so proudly claims. Trump's own chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on Thursday refused to say whether the nuclear facilities had been obliterated. Pete Hegseth, Trump's defense chief, did declare the sites were obliterated, but refused to say where the enriched uranium stockpiles ended up, and then suggested if reporters wanted exact details, they should ask the heads of our nation's 18 spy agencies because they're always so forthcoming with members of the press. During Thursday's press conference, Hegseth said, quote, President Trump directed the most secret and most complex military operation in history. I guess, I don't know, convincing the American people that Saturday's bombing mission was not a complete waste of time and money, I guess that requires a lot more planning than I imagined. The most secret and most complex military operation in history. Eric Schmidt and Helene Cooper over at the New York Times point out that Hegseth seems to have forgotten about D-Day. I think the descendants of General Eisenhower and Winston Churchill should sue Hegseth for libel or slander or whatever it is. Trump, of course, is hiding behind the troops right now. He took to social media, claiming anyone who minimizes Saturday's attacks is hurting the feelings of our brave soldiers who took part in Saturday's bombing missions. We're hurting their feelings. Why is it the Americans with all the power are the ones whose feelings we have to worry about the most? The soldiers, the ICE agents, the police, it's always their feelings, it's their fears and fragility we have to agonize over. And Republicans call it unpatriotic to so much as question whether the Air Force, ICE, and local police are wasting taxpayer dollars on meaningless pageants of brutality. Saturday's bombing campaign accomplished nothing other than putting on a show for low-information Americans who always fall prey to the wishful thinking that wars can be won by dropping some expensive bombs on foreigners. Trump just wants to say, I won, even though he didn't. Israel won. Netanyahu just allowed Trump to play dress-up on Saturday. Secondly, nobody surrendered, which means nobody won. Trump compared Saturday to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Well, you know what happened after Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Japan surrendered. They said, tell us what we need to do. Not quite hearing that from the Iranians. Hang on, I want to go big here for a second. Do you see this? Hegseth and Trump were at the NATO meeting in the Netherlands after the airstrikes. Look, see that? Can you see that? Why is this not working? There we go. See that? The Hague. Finally, look how close these two criminals are to The Hague. It is, by the way, a war crime. It is a war crime to bomb any country that is not an imminent threat. Iran didn't have nuclear weapons. This makes Trump a war criminal who accomplished nothing Saturday other than claiming he did and convincing some stupid Americans it was worth it. Iran's president, Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian declared after the ceasefire that Iran delivered, quote, a severe and historic punishment on Israel and America, and that Israel and America failed in achieving its sinister goals, the destruction of facilities, the dismantling of nuclear expertise, and the incitement of social unrest. Not exactly Japan's foreign minister aboard the USS Missouri signing the Instrument of Surrender. The Speaker of Iran's parliament, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, declared victory, saying, quote, forcing the aggressor enemy to halt its offensive without accepting their demands regarding Iran's enrichment and missile program means that we disregard the enemy's wishes entirely. Not quite victory, Donald. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, just went on television and declared victory. He said Iranian missiles delivered a slap to America's face and threatened further missile strikes. He went on to threaten further missile strikes on American soldiers stationed throughout the region. The Ayatollah then lied and said his retaliatory missile strikes on Americans stationed in Qatar proved to the world Iran can't be defeated. Well, he's also a liar because those missiles were, in fact, shot out of the sky. And again, they were shot out of the sky because the Iranian military gave the Qatar military a heads up beforehand. So Iran could save face and at the same time not hurt anyone. The same way in 2020, after the United States killed the beloved Iranian general Soleimani, Iran called the United States and said, we'll be attacking a U.S. air base in Iraq. You might want to be ready so nobody gets hurt. Or back in April of 2024, Tehran notified Israel to get ready to shoot Iranian missiles out of the sky because Iran has to avenge Israel's attack on Iran's embassy in Syria. That's how it works. That's how it works. Iran, for the most part, tells Israel, the United States, or Qatar to fire up their anti-ballistic Iron Dome or Golden Dome or Star Wars Defense or Maginot Line or whatever they call it. Fired up, get it ready, because we're shooting missiles. We're shooting missiles at you. And because the Israeli, Qatar, and American military is given advance notice, they know where to aim their anti-ballistic missiles, which cost at least $3 million each. Now, eventually, this can lead to real war, like what happened between Israel and Iran for 12 days this month. But how this kabuki dance normally goes is how things went down on Monday, when Iran fired missiles at Americans stationed in Qatar. Iran called Qatar and literally said, make a cup of coffee, wake up, we're sending rockets towards the American base. Get ready because you need to knock those rockets out of the sky before anyone gets hurt. And that is exactly what happened on Monday in Qatar. But that doesn't sound impressive, does it? No, right? It just doesn't sound like something, you hear that. It doesn't make that $1 trillion a year we spend on weapons doesn't sit so well in my stomach when you hear that. So our chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff turned Thursday's press conference into an infomercial for Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, the manufacturers of America's Patriot missiles, the same weapons makers who will be scoring billions when Congress approves Trump's plan for a Golden Dome missile shield that will knock incoming rockets out of the sky so long as the enemy tells us when and where they're coming and what the exact coordinates are. Your tax dollars hard at work. Puffing out his chest Thursday, General Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, lied and called Qatar and the U.S. military working together to shoot out of the sky Iranian rockets heading towards the U.S. Al Udeid Air Base, quote, the largest single Patriot engagement in U.S. military history. He said, quote, we crushed it. He called our soldiers on that base the unsung heroes of the 21st century United States Army for their preparedness to shoot incoming missiles out of the sky. You're lying. You're using our soldiers. You're hiding behind our soldiers. Iran called and said, hey, heads up, incoming. This is what happens when you put a venture capitalist in charge of our Pentagon. General Kane left the military to start his own venture capital firm that invests in, you guessed it, rockets. And now he's back in the military as our chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, trying to convince us we can win wars and stay safe. And all we need are, you guessed it, rockets. So you have the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he's a venture capitalist, defense chief Pete Hegseth, a pathological liar, Trump, Vance, and Rubio, all misleading the American people about Saturday's bombing campaign, which wasted U.S. tax dollars while endangering the lives of our soldiers and countless civilians. But now it's Donald Trump threatening to sue the New York Times for defamation, for slandering him. He's claiming the reporters, he called them, quote, scum, sick, and bad people. Why? Because they reported what our own Defense Intelligence Agency said after the missile strikes. Before the American airstrikes, Israel had already set the Iranian nuclear program back anywhere between 6 months to 2 years. And nothing changed after Trump's Saturday airstrikes. So Trump threatens to sue anyone who reports that. He's threatened to sue the New York Times for defamation, for reporting what Trump's own Defense Intelligence Agency is saying. And yet, when you ask MAGA morons what they hate most about liberals, it's how censorious liberals are, how liberals don't respect the First Amendment. MAGA morons think the First Amendment protects their right to use the N-word and not get fired, or sexually harass Tina in accounting and not get fired. Republicans think being corrected for getting your facts wrong or being called out for just plain lying, they think that's an infringement of their freedom of speech. But the First Amendment only protects Americans from government censorship, like a president threatening to sue the New York Times for defamation after it prints the truth.